So we can.
You're ready for me to start? Great. Good morning, everyone. This is a public meeting of the Indiana Arts Commission Individual Advancement Program Fiscal Year 2021 Grant Review Panel. I'm Ann Valentine, Commissioner from Carmel. Today is April 16th, and we are meeting by conference call and streaming live from a webinar. We welcome applicants and other guests who may be listening in today and would like to remind you that you are muted for this review. There is no direct contact or conversation about the evaluation and disposition of applications before, during, or after the panel meeting. At this time, we would like the panelists and staff to introduce themselves, stating their name, occupation, and where they are from in the state. I'll call your name and you can introduce yourself, beginning with Andrew Bridges.
Good morning. My name is Andrew Bridges. I am based in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I am a contemporary fine arts independent curator.
Thank you, Andrew. Next, Laura Foster Nicholson.
Good morning, Laura Nicholson. As she said, I am a full-time studio artist, have been my entire career of 35 to 40 years. I'm a textile artist, and I do design textiles as well. I'm primarily a weaver.
Thank you, Laura. Next, Marcia Johnson.
Good morning. I'm Marcia Johnson from Gary, Indiana, Lake County. I'm a crafter and an online salesperson.
Thank you. Thank you, Marcia. Next, Jan McCune.
Hi, I'm Jan McCune. I'm a retired arts educator, and I'm in the last 12 years, I've been a jewelry designer, and from Muncie, Indiana.
Thank you. Thank you, Jan. Next, Eric Morales.
Hi, I teach folklore. I got my PhD at Indiana University of Bloomington from the folklore department, and I'm a dancer and artist as well.
Thank you, Eric. Next, Danny Tipman.
This is Danny Tipman. I'm an artist that deals with natural plants and Native American uses of them, and I'm from Arcola, Indiana.
Thank you, Danny. And now Anna Tregesser.
Hi, Anna Tregesser, Artist and Community Services Manager with the Indiana Arts Commission.
Thank you. Now we'll begin the panel review. This is how the process will work. I will announce the application and ask the first reader to begin the discussion. The first reader will provide their assessment of the application based upon the evaluation criteria and their perspective. Panelists, please note that the applications do not need to be recapped since everyone has read it. Just provide your comments. After the first reader is finished, I will ask the second reader to present any new, additional, or opposing comments. We are not looking for consensus, just a full evaluation from the different perspectives panelists bring to the table. After the second reader has finished, I will open the discussion for final comments. Remember, in the interest of time, we are only looking for new, additional, or opposing viewpoints. If a panelist has a conflict of interest, that panelist will be placed on hold while the application is reviewed. However, today there are no conflicts of interest on this panel. Finally, once the application has been reviewed by the full panel, we ask the panel to update their scores in the online system. It is common for scores to change as a result of this broader discussion. These scores save automatically. Are there any questions from the panelists? Okay, let's begin. We'll start with the application, Fiscal Year 21 IAP Acton. The first reader is Jan.
Okay, I'm going to give a one sentence and then I have a lot more that I could say about it. This person is a weaver. They are interested in going to a national weaving conference and then doing follow-up presentations in Northwest Indiana. It was a well-written application that could be stronger on the community engagement and using more of the timeline that was available for the grant project. It was very clear about the background, career stage, and project and goals, career development. Very organized and well-written and personal about that part. She made me feel her enthusiasm for her upcoming project. The only slight tweak would be to indicate more strongly in your short project description how you will share the knowledge from the conference beyond follow-up presentations. It just seemed like it needed a little more. This is a big part of what you want to do, so let us know from the get-go. Excellent photographs of your work. I especially like the close-up details. Your titles let me know which pieces were done on commission. As far as the community engagement, this area would be stronger if it incorporated more two-way activities at or beyond your presentations. For example, how about a hands-on activity in which the public could add on to a weaving that you had started? An elementary school teacher would love to have you teach a simple weaving project to students. How about an open house in your studio? Another thing, your timeline covered only from July to October. It seems feasible for the short term as far as your 2 demonstrations. When would you expect to add an educational component to your website, during the project or afterward? Because you had mentioned wanting to add an educational component. Let's see. Since your outcome focuses on teaching others about weaving, it would also make sense to me to have expenses in your budget related to that. So just in general, well-written, could be stronger in community engagements and maybe use more of the timeline. So thank you.
Thank you, Jan. The second reader now is Laura.
Hi. I agree with a lot of what Jan has to say, so I won't reiterate that. I found that this was an accomplished weaver in the niche that she has chosen, which is a certain kind of weaving. And going to Convergence is a terrific experience. You can pick up an awful lot of knowledge from a huge variety of weavers in the craft. I've been to several Convergences and presented at them as well. So I would like to see that she go also with a checklist of what she actually wants to learn. It's kind of a broad field. It can be confusing. And I noted that she wants to be able to pick up on teaching skills. I think that's great by taking workshops, but also examine further aspects of a weaving craft would be a good idea. And so setting her expectations before beginning this workshop and then making sure she understands what she gained in a kind of a straightforward way so that she can share it beyond perhaps being prepared to make changes in her own work would be an admirable way to do it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Laura. Are there any new or opposing comments? Hearing none, please finalize your scores and update your online comments. We'll begin again in a few moments, and let me know if you need more time when I start up again.
Great work, everyone.
Okay. We'll go to the next application, fiscal year 21 IAP Bae. The first reader is Eric.
Hi. Well, I actually really love this this application and this idea that the artist is talking about doing an idea of bookmobile for knitting, essentially, which I just thought was fascinating. And I found that she provides a wonderful overview of her history with the art form, and she details her project quite well. What she's trying to do is this interdisciplinary activity that combines technology, knitting, graffiti, video game, and imagery, and bring that around her community. For the applicant, I thought the project was well thought out. I thought it was creative. The community engagement aspect was right up there because she was actively trying to engage with the children in her community, and the bookmobile, the knitmobile. I'm not sure exactly what it would be called again. It seemed like a good way to go about that to make people excited, especially right now when some people are stuck at home. Well, I should probably, never mind, along with that. Overall, I thought the project was wonderful, and I also enjoyed the fact that her documentation of creativity showed exactly how she was moving the process of designing images on Adobe Capture and then transferring them to Yarn. I thought, however, I would like a bit more explanation, though, of how she was doing that. But I'm not sure if that was needed for the grant. It was just something that I would have appreciated hearing more of. I think that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Eric. And now for our second reader, Marcia.
I reviewed this application. I agree with what Eric had said, but also, let me go down. I know I tried to review the process of knitting that she had. The spelling, I don't know if it was something on my end. I'm a pretty good Googler, but for the spelling of it, it was spelled, not sure if it started K-N-O-M-A-D, knits. And online, the only thing that comes up that is even close is something that starts with N-O-M-A-D, knits, which I'm sure I see that as her main conversation throughout her application. So maybe it's something that Google doesn't know. I'm not sure. So that's the only thing that I know that stuck out for me because I was interested. It was interesting how her pictures and how the knitting process, and so I cross-referenced, and that's what I came up. I see that she wanted to develop a new body of work for a traveling installation called, the Nomads. Is that how you pronounce that? Can someone pronounce the word of this knitting application?
I mean, Nomad?
Nomad? Okay. Let's see. The applicant plans to have a kickoff event scheduled at Ivy Tech targeting Indianapolis students, which gives great engagement. So I find this to be a positive application. Also down to the financial part of the application, she was pretty detailed and itemized all of her details into the cost of this. I'm trying to go down, sorry. Give me 1 second. Yeah, very detailed, gave every reference in regards to where they were planning to stay, as well as the cost of classes, where the classes were located. So it was very clear and detailed exactly to what she was looking to have accomplished through this application. So I agree that it was very well put together. My only question was the actual process of the knitting, the Nomads.
Great, thank you, Marcia.
Thank you.
Are there any new or opposing comments? Okay, please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Let me know if you need more time. We'll now go to application fiscal year 21 IAP De Benedetto. The first reader is Danny.
Thank you. I am having trouble accessing my comments from it. Can we go to the second reader?
Sure, sure. Andrew is the second reader. Andrew, could you lead us off?
Sure. Sorry, responded with my mute on. That was clever. Yes. This was the application from Jenny Di
Benedetto.
Benedetto.
Yep.
We'll use the IAP grant to provide multifaceted support in the creation of a new collection of small-scale sculptural work. From my notes, it's going to be based in Jeffersonville, down south. She is previously a resident of Louisville. Generally, there were only a few small aspects to the application. I found the application, it was very, very detailed, and that is always a better thing than being sparse on information. But to be honest, I felt that it was maybe a little too wordy. It could have been more succinct for my taste, but it's better to provide more than not enough information. What was strong, I really, just generally, I really enjoyed her budget. In her application, she was very detailed, and her budget was very itemized. She had tracked down the exact prices of specific products for her goal. Her goal is to get a space in basically downtown Jeffersonville and very near to a makerspace, where she wants to have a monthly membership and be able to make new pieces with that wonderful workshop very close. She does have a 2 degrees in art, but I actually kind of appreciate that she has a BS in business management and a minor in entrepreneurship. It's with her combined art education and knowledge and experience, it does very much feel like she is educated to open a studio, actual functioning, workable studio, and I think that could be very beneficial, especially for Jeffersonville.
Thank you, Andrew. Are there any new or opposing comments from the rest of the panel?
Did you still want to hear from the first reader before anybody else talks?
I would love to hear from the first reader.
Danny, did you have more feedback?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. It was well written, and I think the community engagement was well thought out, and it came at an appropriate time in her career. So I'm very supportive of it.
Thank you. Any other new or opposing comments?
Yeah, I have some comments about this application. I was spending some time looking at the budget, and there are a few things that stuck out to me. One, it seems like $50. She's asking for the students to contribute $50. She wants to have 8 participants, and so 7 students would be paying, and then there would be 1 scholarship student. So that would be a total of $350 for which she is charging for the space and for the materials. But she also includes the budget also includes the cost of those students inside of it. So it's like she's kind of double doing it right there. Let me see, going for a little bit further down. Yeah, so she has that here, $300 for workshop materials for 8 participants, plus 2 demos, and then $80 classroom rental. So it's like, I'm not sure what the $50 for the students is actually supposed to pay for, or why, if it seems like she's having all the materials and classroom space and paying for the grant, why is she charging students $50 on top of that?
Right, that's not what I understood, and from the reading, I started writing that down, but then reading back, what I understood was that the grant, the itemized list of prices is for the grant, and then the workshops that she's able to provide and the classes and the teaching she's able to provide, the money from that will go back into her practice for materials and continued operation.
I'm sorry, Jan and I are both up at the same time. This is Laura. I've got a comment.
Sure, go ahead.
I find the budget a little bit squirrely too. I did find that charging students for something that the IAC is basically paying for doesn't seem right to me. Everything else seems great. She seems very professional and really knows what she's doing, and it is great to join a maker space, and I envy that personally. But I think that it's probably a good idea to just make one public service workshop with that budget, and then you know that later she'll be able to charge this kind of fee for other student workshops.
This is Marcia. I have a comment also.
Go ahead.
Okay. I guess we're all in the same area. I noticed the 200, and maybe that's nothing, but I also noticed the $200 stipend as a payment for teaching the one day. So that's for her teaching the class. Then also I noticed on the resume, because I know that this is something that is based in Indiana, and, you know, a resident of Indiana, I noticed there's a conflict that I picked up on between Indiana and Kentucky, because it seems as if the applicant's resume shows that they currently work in Kentucky. So I don't know if they're just coming to do crafting in Indiana at times, or if they're in Kentucky. Because it still shows that they presently work in Kentucky. So I was just concerned with that, because it didn't say that I'm working from home, you know, for a company in Kentucky. It says presently working in Kentucky. So,
It was, sorry, it was mentioned in, and I've had that in my notes as well. I had written down, is she still in Louisville? But no, in the application, it was mentioned that she did move to Jeffersonville.
Yeah, I noticed that, but then I also just noticed, then it went back into more of conversation in regards to the Kentucky. So that was my only question.
All right.
Thank you.
I had a comment on the quality of artist work part. There was a note, an administrator note, that you were only allowed to have 10 images total, so I only looked at the first 10. Since the project is really supposed to be about creating these small-scale sculptural works, I thought that her images, therefore, her first 10 images should show that. Instead, they more went to different things, you know, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So only comment.
This is Laura again. I will concur with Jan. That had occurred to me as well, that the actual application images were scattered and didn't really support what she's going for as a career as an artist. You look for kind of a continuity in a portfolio, and I couldn't find a connection between the images and the proposal. Not a strong connection, I should say.
Thank you for the discussion, panel. Please finalize your
Yeah,
scores.
sorry.
Oh, more? Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, this is Eric again.
Yep.
I was just going through the application again, and what it was saying, there was a part under project description where it says that she's going to be using the stipend to pay for instructional time, and that there'll be a moderate workshop fee. Participants will cover the expenses for materials used in classroom rental within the art center. So she's saying that the participants are supposed to be covering the materials and classroom time, but she includes that in the grant, along with her instructional fee. So it just seems like the budget is kind of a mess right there. And I was trying to see if I was wrong after hearing Andrew's comment, and it's just still written there that way.
Thank you. Please finalize your scores and update your online comments. We'll now move to application FY21 IAP Gulley, starting with first reader, Laura.
This is a really well-rounded and well thought out application. The applicant wants to expand her I'm sorry, I'm thinking as I talk. The artist wants to expand her workshop facilities in order to include some new kinds of tools that would make it possible for her to teach classes at her own workshop. She has a pretty great career path that has shown her taking many workshops at well-known, well-focused kinds of craft places like Anderson Ranch, and that's not just craft, and Penland. And she is very articulate about how she wants to take what she's learned there and inspire other people. She speaks of how these particular workshops for her really set her on her career path and wants to be able to follow in that lead. So by getting new equipment for her studio, she will be able to teach workshops in her studio rather than in the other places that she's been teaching workshops in up till now. She's got, great cred, clear career trajectory. She really wants to give back in the arts and views that by doing it through teaching, and has lots of ideas with some detail about the kinds of classes she wants to teach children and adults. And so overall, I was impressed with her clarity and her preparation and her optimism. I don't find too much to argue with here at all. I find that these things are pretty clear, well-researched, and commendable. So that's my take on it.
Thank you, Laura. And now our second reader, Eric.
I agree with what Laura was saying. I thought her application was wonderful. I also particularly enjoyed the fact that she mentioned how doing her workshops will open up woodworking to more women, seeing as it was primarily a male-dominated area of art, of folk art. So I thought that was wonderful. I thought her gallery that she provided the link to showed beautiful images that corresponded well with her application of what she wants to do. And the only thing I would suggest is I would like a little bit more understanding of where she's currently at in her artistic career, but otherwise it was wonderful.
Thank you. Are there any new or opposing comments from the rest of the panel?
I would like to see a little more on community engagement. She will create blanks for the children to use during her classes with them. But could you also do a public event other than a class where kids get to adorn a blank with their own touches? As part of it, you could also demonstrate your own skills in power carving. With your background, I'm sure you can come up with many creative ways to engage the public with hands-on activities.
Thank you, Jan. Okay, please finalize your scores and update your online comments. We'll now go to the application Fiscal Year 21 IAP Graber. The first reader is Marcia.
Give me 1 second. Graber. Thank you for your patience. Okay, this was an application that seemed to be well thought out. This applicant has a 43-year experience in the art of weaving, classified on the folk art based on the foundational learning from her migrated grandfather in 1874. She's seeking to keep that tradition of weaving alive by providing workshops and to network and explore the techniques of fellow weavers. So she's requesting to go to a seminar to learn more, as well as to network with other weavers, as well as to get more information and to see about how she can learn how to be more techniques of teaching in public. Is also one of her ambitions with where she's going from here. She provided a YouTube video which allowed you to see the beginning process of how the weaving goes with baskets, and she showed a few other items as she told us about her history of weaving in her family all the way back to her grandfather. Let's see, and also let's go down. For the public benefit and community engagement, back to her desire to teach and demonstrate, but the only thing I noticed that she didn't have a solid plan of action, although that she wanted to go and take the class, she wanted to learn about teaching, but from there wasn't much conversation in regards to a solid plan after returning, only potential opportunities, nothing set in stone or down to the grind. She states that she has several connections for locations, but no solid dates. It would have made this application stronger by at least having one verifiable location for classes with, a potential date. Let's go down to the feasibility. Specific details of the amounts needed to travel out of town for weaving. Workshop would have been better. It says $14.75 for class costs, $9.66 for travel and accommodation. Kind of just vague in regards to, travel, $9.66. Are we going by car, airplane? I'm not really sure. There's no details in regards to that. So I think that's one of the little areas that could have kind of had a little bit more information that I found. Thank you.
Thank you. And now our second reader, Danny. We can hear you now.
Hello.
Yep.
Thank you. I read through this and I was very grateful that there were pictures in the video of her producing the artwork. It gave me a better understanding of all the things that she can do. I was a little confused with the community engagement because she was going to be relying on the skills that she already had to do the public engagement, community engagement portion before she went to the class and actually got the new skills. So I didn't know if she needed a special exception to allow her to teach after that, or I'm not sure on that portion of it. It seems that she's at a good point in her career to go to this class, and she had a lot of enthusiasm for what she was doing, so I was supportive of it.
Thank you, Danny. Are there any new or opposing comments?
This is adding on to the community engagement. There were things that she had stated previously, but then she didn't include them in the community engagement. For example, she had talked about installation of 2 living willow structures in the project management section. And that would be community engagement, and it should have been in that section also. And her resume showed that she had demonstrated her craft through Arts in the Park, and that should also be in it. It's just like she needed to think that section out more.
Thank you. Laura?
Yeah, I would like to comment just on her expectations from the conference itself. She's been weaving for a very long time, and that's very impressive, and clearly, you know, she knows her craft and she has a lot of experience in sharing that craft. But I'd like to see that she would set stronger challenges for herself and her goals on this as a way of, you know, not personal development, artistic and say creative and conceptual development. She's very general about what she hopes to gain. It's great fun, and also you learn a lot of all sorts of things when you go to a conference, but it's really important to also try to articulate what you're trying to get out of it. And I would have liked to have seen that kind of consciousness level. Otherwise, I thought it was a very sound application.
Yeah, I would like to add on that. I was wondering what would make these workshops important, but specifically, what kind of styles is she trying to learn? Because I didn't see anything other than like general notions of basket making, basket weaving. So, or what are the names of styles? Who are the artists that she wants to work with? Some more background, some more details. Otherwise, the application I thought was strong, but I agree with everything the other panelists said as well.
Thank you. Please finalize your scores and update your online comments, and let me know if you need more time.
Thanks, everyone. Again, really helpful comments from everyone. General reminder for each person, you know, imagine that applicant on the other side of the table from you, and maybe deliver some of those comments like they're sitting in front of you would be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Let's move ahead to application fiscal year 21 IAP Green, starting with our first reader, Andrew.
Hi, there we go. And there we are. Seth Green is currently a part-time studio potter, and basically he is requesting funds for an electric kiln so that he can have not only more active and continuous practice, but a much safer practice. Currently, he has to, like many ceramicists, rent time or go to a kiln to fire any of these works, but as any of us that have done ceramics know, transporting unfired pottery sometimes doesn't go well, especially sometimes when you live in Indiana in a less than well-paved street. Overall, the application was quite good. One part that I actually quite liked was that he has listed the price of the kiln and the exact model as much more than the grant that he could get. So he's actually going to be paying out of pocket for about 45% of the kiln itself. And he's also included in the application that he has already outfitted his home with the proper infrastructure, the wiring and the electrical systems needed for the kiln. So I like the fact that he's already gone through the process of getting the kiln and preparing to use it quite directly. So it's for the fact that he's already taken those steps rather than just getting the kiln. There was, and maybe it's just me, but spelling errors always get to me. And there was a spelling error in the second box in the second paragraph. Also, he did mention about where he is in his practice currently, that it's difficult for him to find exhibitions or to be a part of exhibitions. Most of the exhibitions he's been a part of have been group shows, and with the new kiln he's hoping to get into more. But I would recommend, as someone that has had some experience with galleries, that there are many studio buildings and galleries in and around not only his area, but Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, different areas around Indiana that could be much more active potential possibilities for solo exhibitions. So I would recommend that he explore more of the galleries and studio buildings around the state. So it would be a benefit for him. I mean, I'm sure we've all had damaged or broken artwork. You know, having tools on site, having the ability to produce work on site is always much better, and I appreciate that, maybe on a more visceral level. And generally for the work that he proposes to do and the expansion of his work toward community outreach, the show that he's currently preparing for and the kiln would aid in that. The interaction with the public, which I found interesting, the space that he's going to be exhibiting at later this year is also a shared space with a bakery and a dance studio. So I suppose getting people from outside of the art world exposed to art, which I'm quite a fan of. And he did mention engaging with the local high school, that he has been going and teaching courses or assisting in teaching. I think, you know, even having the possibility of having a home kiln or a personal kiln, I see home tools as a very positive thing, especially if you are dealing with school or high school or pre-high school education. I think that might be it for me right now.
Thank you, Andrew. And now for our second reader, Jan.
I agree with those comments. I thought the work presented was absolutely gorgeous. I love the forms. I like the way
I agree with that too.
The reduction glazing, I thought it was beautiful. My only thing that I thought could be better, really most of his project is done at the end of October. And the grant project can last until, you know, the end of the following June. So I would love to see what could be done, and maybe with more community engagement after this show.
Right. I would agree with that as well. I mean, I think, and I've come across this in many of the applications, and there is almost this implicit idea of future projects. For instance, Mr. Green, he did mention, you know, working with high schools and making new works. And within that, it almost feels like there is that implicit, like, I work with high schools now, so once I have a kiln, I can work with high schools more. And I agree with Jan there. I think in many times the community outreach is nebulous or slightly undefined, or it's stated as an extension or a continuation of their current practice. So I'd like to see slightly more ambitious goals or long-term goals. And as you say, you know, the grant goes farther. So, you know, but once the kiln is operational, like that's the thing. I mean, whether he's using it or not, if he is working with local students or even other ceramicists that are also paying for, you know, first come, first serve kiln spots, you know, one more kiln in that group cuts that time down. It it gives access to more local ceramicists. So no, but I agree with Jan.
Thank you. Are there any new or opposing comments?
This is Laura again. Great application. And I agree with everything that the other two have said, with the exception of defining the grant period. Now, this is an interesting question as an artist who's applied for these. In effect, when he's buying the kiln and getting the show up, you know, that's, you know, done. And I wonder whether it's essential to have it run the whole period. I mean, obviously the man's not buying a kiln to just use it once or twice and then, you know, go on to something else. And so in a sense, that grant period is continuous as long as he is doing the activities that he's laid out that seem to be a natural part of his practice. So I'm not going to be totally persnickety about a grant period timing, even though that is a required question.
Right. And well, and I think for, depending on how individual grant money is used or budgeted, you know, something like a larger kiln, because there were other requests for grants for smaller kilns, for home kilns, or you know, smaller unneeded necessary electrical augmentation kilns. And for those, like, yeah, you can throw it in your garage, you can put it in the basement, but for a larger kiln that, you know, it's almost $4,000. I mean, that is it's much closer to an industrial or production or academic high school kiln, or like a kiln one of us would have used. So for that, as you say, like, yes, I think more could have been laid out for future plans, because it's within the grant time proposal. But at the same time, if once he gets the kiln and it starts going, I think he'll use it till it dies, or he resells it and then another artist uses it. So I think the continual use, or the continual ability to produce work and to put more and more art out in that environment, I think I like that aspect of this potential.
Thank you. Do we have any additional comments from the panel? Okay, please finalize your scores and update your online comments, and let me know if you need more time. Okay. Panel, if it's all right with you, I'd like to get through one more application and then we could take a break after that. So we'll move to application fiscal year 21 IAP Johnson, Sherry, starting with first reader Laura. Laura, you are still muted. I can see you talking.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Somehow I missed writing that one down on my list, so I haven't done my recent prep. So I'll have
Happens
to
all.
do this. I find that, let me just read my own comments. That's a quickie. She's very clear about what she wants to do in her work, and she's active in community work already. But I wonder at her plan is to combine somehow batik and biking, which is a sweet idea. It's charming, but I think it's a stretch as a grant topic. It's her fascination and batik is her fascination, and I don't know whether that's substantive enough to base the whole project on. However, getting her batik going is admirable, and probably it's time for her to do that. She wants to, I'm sorry if I'm stumbling. I had a hard time accessing her video clip, but when I did see it, I didn't see any work in her website documentation, which included the batik. And so I don't know why she included that. It's a little bit, it seems sketchy, I have to say, that, something that she loves a lot and clearly wants to develop and may well be very good at already. I can't quite see how prepared she is to take on this project, other than enthusiasm. And she wants to make new work, sell it, markets, and so on, and that's great. And she's been educating for a long time, so that's great. But I think it's kind of a general application, and I would have liked much more specific explanation of everything she wants to learn. Bringing the art to the public is unclear. Yeah, you'll hit the market and you'll be in exhibitions, but I'm not real sure that that is defined enough public engagement activity. But the timeline's fine. The application is basically strong, and she has a great sense of community and a strong commitment to teaching. And the funding itself seems reasonable. I'd like to see her develop a deeper sense of her own artistic identity with a grant like this, as well as the ability to find a way of inter-questioning to give the work more depth. If she strengthens the relationship between a subject and the process used to depict that subject, that's crucial for every craft. The process and the subject must be a marriage of art and thought. So those are my thoughts. It's kind of a lovely idea, to combine biking and batik, but I'm not sure that that's a very clear way to present her ideas.
Thank you, Laura. We'll move to our second reader, Eric.
Hi. So I agree with the part about developing a bit more on the background of batik. The artist mentions that how she got into it, and then she says she hasn't been back to it for a number of years. She speaks a lot more about her biking. She does seem like an exceptional artist, and I was able to access her video that showed the batik. The only thing I would say about the video, though, is that it didn't need to be a video. video. I would have preferred a PDF document since there wasn't any movement in it. It was just scanning through the images. The PDF document would have given me the ability to look at it on my own pace. I do think that her community engagement sounds interesting, and it sounds like it's something that would involve the community. I like how she backed it up by saying, you know, this area already has this large bicycle festival, and this would be another way to essentially explore bicycling through art. And the idea of having this large banner that everybody got to add to creates kind of a strong community aspect to me. So primarily with this application, I would just like some more detail as to why she's at the level in her batik artwork that we should pay to have her advance further into it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Are there any new or opposing comments?
I just absolutely love the idea. I thought that was very creative to take the two things that she is interested in and combine them. I thought it could be stronger if she zeroed in more on how this project would fulfill her career goals. That was kind of nebulous, whereas most of the other part was very, very concrete and well written. But that was too nebulous for me.
This is Marcia. I have just a comment, kind of the same. I agree. I know that biking, just like cross-training, running, and all of that, we have some family members that are close to us, and when they're in it, they're really in it. So that's a big community. But I, too, would like to see a broader view of some other way to take that, but I know that that is a big audience when it comes to the biking, or if it was, you know, the running or whatever, marathons and things like that. So that is a good avenue because they have workshops and they're always having, you know, little kiosks, you know, there. So that is a good thing. And they have little classes because people have children that participate, you know, in those. So I would like to see the expansion of that, but I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Okay, panel, please finalize your scores and update your online comments and let me know if you need more time. Okay, panel, at this time, we're going to take a very brief break, 5 minutes. I'm setting the timer on my phone. If you would please mute yourself till we come.
I feel like panel break 5 minutes are quicker than any other 5 minutes of my day. I'm like, it's already time.
It's that like it takes you approximately 1 hour to exit Zoom world and enter real world. And that takes the whole time.
Yeah.
Your brain does not have time to be in real world.
Mhm.
Oh man.
Or just dive right in. Okay, we're going to dive right back in. We are now at application fiscal year 21 IAP Llewellyn, starting with first reader, Marcia.
Okay, for this one, this applicant is trying to set up a furniture store where the concept is dealing with recycled and repurposed items. The applicant wants funding to move into a full-time operation. I believe they were just kind of doing it, from a home-based type of situation. Let's see what else I put down here. Although I understand they make custom furniture, the description is a little vague on the level of business of how they're trying to grow. What are they specifically, trying to do other than the fact that I know that it's, I know that it's recycled, it's repurposed, which is a good thing because we have a lot of waste in the country. So that is I'm an advocate on that as well. So that's good. Then we go down to the part where they did have pictures that were included of some items that they've already worked on that I viewed. And down to the benefit of the community, the applicant gave no form of detail. The only information of engagement with public the applicant gave was, they plan to put it on social media, which it can be just how do you drive the people of, because it is about the community as well. So hopefully, when they're saying social media, they're going to connect with some of the local community type applications that are on social media, so to make sure that you're driving the people in your area to you. The gallery shows they plan to do, and they also are trying to work on the product availability. As far as the feasibility, it looks like, let me go down, give me 1 second. They're looking for $32,000, $7,000 in materials, and $15,000 in living and workshop expenses, and then in parentheses it says bills. I'm not really sure. There's no real breakdown of what exactly that means as far as the bills go. And so that was my big question mark, is the cost. And, but, that's mostly, something that they would be doing outside of this, project as far as the grant. But I just didn't understand, it doesn't say, what type of materials. Is this for building your, the merchandise that you're creating, or is this for the space that you're looking to utilize? That's all I have.
Thank you, Marcia. We'll now go to our second reader, Danny.
I thought that this application needed more details. I had to base my look at their artwork on the first 10 photos that were submitted, and should enable the artist to post photos that would definitely support what they do. I think the public benefit needs to be expanded on. Let the reviewers know exactly how the public will participate. Don't assume that we know what you know. So it's a great opportunity to bring out what the art can really do. there should definitely be more details in the cash and how it would be spent and how it will benefit the artist's life and help to achieve the artist's goals. I guess that's all the comments that I have.
Thank you, Danny. Are there any new or opposing comments?
I would love to see this artist apply for an on-ramp grant. I think he's got some great ideas and a lot of energy, and perhaps the tutoring that comes along with that in developing a business plan would be a great benefit to him. I really encourage him to continue with this work. He seems to have a lot of energy and a good vision.
Thank you, panel. Please finalize your scores and update your online comments. We'll now move to application fiscal year 21 IAP Miller, A, and our first reader, Andrew.
Thank you. This is an application for Andrea J. Miller. Basically, she has been working full-time as an educator, and she would like funds to update her website and basically update her studio infrastructure as well. I thought this application was very reasonable. I wrote only a few notes about it. She is going to use the funds to get a new website of an amount of time on that platform, along with studio infrastructure, which actually includes insulation. She uses a unconnected garage as her studio at her home, but because of her regular teaching schedule outside of art, she hasn't been able to go through with her practice or with updating her studio or her website. The application in general was very reasonable. The feasibility was fine. She specializes in metalsmithing, jewelry, enameling, and through her updating, she wants to teach more, do workshops. I thought the community engagement was there, but as before, I thought it could have been expanded on. It could have been maybe slightly more ambitious. Also, one thing that did concern me and bother me was that there was only one image uploaded. Her resume was fine and the budget was fine, but there was only one image of the type of jewelry or the proposed jewelry she would make with her funds. So that was definitely a sticking point for me. The budget was fairly well detailed, with individual items costing X amount and everything being fairly well drawn out, even to monthly memberships for individual aspects and specific prices for drywall and insulation, which I appreciated that. I'm curious to hear from the second speaker.
Before I move on, I just wanted to note, Andrew, I just sent you a link in the chat to a link that the applicant provided. It was actually in the text box, not as an upload, to a Google Drive folder with more images. So I want to make sure that you had that
Okay.
before you finalize your scores.
Great, thank you, Anna. If we can go to our second reader, Laura.
Hi. Well, I think that these are really good goals to update your website and to make your studio workable in the winter. I think that these things, you can't work well in this day and age without those things. So they're great goals. The website, I know, working on my website is just a job, and it's much better turned over to the pros. And I'm a little, I think the business about the Goshen Jewelers Guild and making a difference, I think it'll help, but she's really investing a lot of expectations in that. And sometimes I think that just like working in the studio and getting the website is plenty of goal for the time frame allotted. It's a great advantage to also join the Jewelers Guild, and I know that will bring a lot of interaction and activity among like-minded people. So I'm not really sure that is what defines community engagement. It's certainly community participation. And so on the whole, like, oh, and by the way, I did look at all of the images and found them interesting, but quite different. Each project was quite different from the other, and I'm not real sure how they add up to a vision. Although that's not really our purpose here. It doesn't really support her idea either. So all that being said, I think she's taken the right steps at her stage of career to get to make her practice more defined, more reliable, and get it out in the world. All of those things are positive and should do her a lot of good if she's able to achieve them. I think that's all I have to say at this point.
Thank you. Any other new or opposing comments?
Just a quick comment on the work. I would have appreciated that she put her own artistic work in front of the pictures of the trailer and people working at events and so on, because we want to look at her own work and see if we can judge on that, if she can do her project.
Okay, thank you. Please finalize your scores and update.
I have a, sorry. I'm
sorry. Please go ahead.
I have one quick comment about the budget really fast. When it comes to the budget, I would have liked a little bit more detail for things like developing the website or taking professional photographs. And I'm not saying that our artist didn't think about this. She might be considering using a host of online platforms or taking the photos for herself. I just would have liked to see paying for that, or how that was going to be projected inside the budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Anna, I did see thank you for reminding me of that link. I didn't have a way to look at it before, but I would agree with Jan. It is a bit scattered, and the images or the image themselves aren't entirely clear of a good image of her work or featuring her work, and that would have been much better to see. And also, I mean, it would have been better to see multiple pieces of one series to get a better idea of individual series and what kind of variety was within them. But yeah, that's all.
Thank you. Please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Let me know if you need more time. Okay, just a reminder, we have less than 30 minutes panel to get through our remaining reviews, applications, we now move to application fiscal year 21 IAP Mitchell, starting with first reader, Eric.
All right, let's make this go fast. I love the project, and the artist shows a lot of enthusiasm throughout the project. I would have liked a little bit more detail because it wasn't until the second paragraph that the artist started to even mention the project title a little bit more. And but the underlying idea of everything is wonderful. I'm sorry, I'm trusting that everybody's read this, so I'm not going to break it down as much because everybody time. But yeah, the social lessons undergirding the work are fantastic. However, I would like the artist to spend, the applicant to spend a little more time expatiating on how this project will help them develop as an artist. So just provide more concrete takeaways. And other than that, though, this project is just fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. And now our second reader, Jan.
Okay, I thought an exceptional resume, wonderful exhibition records and publications, wonderful images showing that you have the expertise to do this. I would still like to see more in the community engagement section. You are collecting newspapers at 3 different schools, but beyond that, I do not see the interaction with those students. So, for instance, you had said in your resume that you had written curriculum before. So, would it be possible to have something that you could give a lesson plan to teachers so that they could present a lesson to their students? Or yeah, just include students in a more hands-on way. And your work is wonderful. I just love looking at it. So thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Are there any new or opposing comments? Okay, please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Let me know if you need more time. We'll now move to application fiscal year 21 IAP Morales, starting with our first reader, Danny. Danny, are you able to unmute?
Okay, sorry.
That's all right. We can hear you now. Go ahead.
This application has a well thought out plan, both makes the necessary tools available for the artist's future and for bringing the artist closer to the community through an apprentice. I thought that when they were presenting their artwork, when it's completed, that would help too. So it might be easier to see a progression to the professional maturity that they were looking for. I would have wanted to include the dates that the art when they were produced as well. And I'd love to hear what the second reviewer has to say.
Great, thank you. Our second reader is Eric.
Hi, I just want to say the artist has a wonderful last name, but we have no relation. Put that out there.
Thank you for clarifying.
The artist mentions mentoring an intern, and that seems to be a big part of the application, but at the same time, I'd like to have more information about it. So how many, just some more scaffolding. How many hours per week would she mentor the intern? What skills will she be teaching? And how does that play into the wax casting process a bit more? And let me see. So, but perhaps, or even instead of doing a one-on-one internship, perhaps doing more things like a workshop or video tutorials, something that can get more people out there. I'm not sure if the IAC has an apprenticeship program, but if it does, I would highly advise the artists to apply for that. If not, I'm pretty sure traditional artists in Indiana do work like this with one-on-one mentorship. And I think just addressing those issues would make the application stronger. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Are there any new or opposing comments?
Hi, this is Jan. I had received an Indiana Arts Commission grant to learn lost wax casting, so I'm quite familiar with it. I noticed that she is a filmmaker, so I would say it would be wonderful of you to take a video of your process, of the lost wax casting process, which could be shown at the November 1st Friday, and then bring along your tools and equipment. And I've demonstrated it before, and people are fascinated by lost wax casting. Yeah, so that's it.
Thank you. Okay, please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Please let me know if you need additional time.
Thank you, everyone. You're doing a great job.
Thank you for picking up the pace a little bit. Appreciate
In our new speed round.
Okay, we'll move to application fiscal year 21 IAP Murray, starting with our first reader, Jan.
Okay, give me a second here to, I'm coming. Okay, this is for purchasing a small kiln for the purpose of testing clay and glazes. And let's see what I got here. I especially like the section in which the career as an artist was described. Very strong resume. This is a strong overall application with the exception of the community engagement section. Besides showing your work and possibly doing an artist talk, I think you can connect more with your audience and give them a deeper way to react with your work. Perhaps a sculpture station with drawing and paper and drawing materials where they could plan out a sculpture after looking at yours. And this is another case that you don't have much planned after anything, as far as I can tell, planned after your October 2020 solo exhibition. So I would like to see you plan more community engagement after that. Or yeah, so those are my main comments. So thank you.
Thank you, Jan. We'll now move to our second reader, Andrew.
Yeah. The one comment I would have to that is that Miss Murray is a CCIC artist, and she has the front studio office. So she's on the main. Oh, everybody still there? Okay. She is on the main studio floor and in the main studio space in the CCIC. My thought was, just as we were talking about kilns before, her having a kiln in her studio around all those other artists, and many of them emerging or in Heron or just out of Heron, the access to that kiln or the interaction, the collaboration, I've quite liked that, especially getting more tools and equipment into large studio spaces like that, especially dense studio spaces like that, because some of those studios are quite small. So to have access to even a small kiln would be incredibly useful on that floor. I did like her budget, that she quoted the price of the kiln all the way down to the cent. and then she put the rest of the grant toward additional supplies. And I appreciate the fact that as a working artist, she knows for a fact that those supplies will come on very quickly and then be used, and that grant money will be well spent. I like the fact that that the kiln being on the studio floor will be much more like an academic setting. I mean, it gives so much more access for, I mean, maybe even a lot of artists that had never done any kiln work or very limited amounts of kiln work. I do agree, though. I think there should be another proposed exhibition, even after the 20th anniversary exhibition, or after any scheduled ceramic exhibition in October. You know, there could be more exhibitions planned, or even shoot as high as you can. So I would like to see that as well.
Thank you. Are there any new or opposing comments? Okay, please find.
I have one really quick comment. Sorry, I have one really quick comment. Just when it comes to the budget, instead of putting the links, so many links, I'd like to just have the price numbers right next to it, so I don't have to follow each link as well. Well, you put both.
Thank you. Okay, panelists, please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Let me know if you need additional time. Okay, we will move to the next application, Fiscal Year 21 IAP POR, starting with our first reader, Laura.
Well, this is an interesting application. It's she's a early career artist and kind of fresh out of school, and has gotten quite excited about the relevance of mending clothes in terms of today's ecology and a way of keeping hands busy. It's a really laudable and beautiful project in that sense. I've noticed a lot of work out there in the fiber community of emulating the Japanese style of visible mending, where instead of just trying to make an invisible patch, the mending actually enhances the item of clothing in some way. And it's clear that the applicant has been influenced by this point of view. And so her proposal is to have a series of workshops to teach people mending skills, and also have people maybe come in and share their own skills, which is a lovely idea too. So in terms of all of that, I think it's a great idea, just a wonderful idea. My feeling is that I'm not real sure that the applicant is completely prepared to take this on yet. She understands the community value of learning these skills, absolutely, and I couldn't agree more. But I wonder how she's going to sell it as something that's a useful skill. The examples that she provides in her visual documentation of her mended items are few. There are only 3, and they're on blue jeans, and they're sweet. And I've seen a lot of work like that on, let's say, Instagram and in artists' portfolios. But I would like to challenge her to think about mending real clothes. Like if somebody with their good, business suit wants it mended, you're not going to put something like that on it. And so I think studying the scope of mending techniques is absolutely essential, and part of her idea of learning from other community participants how they darn a sock or sew back on buttons is great. But there's a lot of depth to this, a lot of meat to this, and with enough research into not only what the techniques are, but who her audience really is, I think she could go a long way with this project. At this point, seems like it's a bit sketchy. And I would love to encourage her to keep at it. I would also think that maybe an on-ramp fellowship would be a more appropriate kind of grant so that she can develop the other skills needed to make this into a real gift to the community, which is what she's aiming at. I think that's all I have to say at this point.
Thank you, Laura. We'll move to our second reader, Jan.
Okay, I agree with Laura's comments. I find this to be a very laudatory goal, but I think it needs a lot more fleshing out to make it achievable. And other than wanting to make it part of your continued artistic project, I couldn't quite see how it fit in with your own career goals. I agree also with the your showing of your artist work. I thought your embroidery samples were very, very strong, but would have liked to have seen stronger pictures of your mending skills. And I even thought it might be worth it to actually spend some time with a professional who mends clothing to learn specific weaving techniques. So I would love you to just flesh this out some more and apply another time, because it just didn't seem like you were quite, your ideas are there, but you're not quite ready yet, as far as I can see. So, but I encourage you to keep going on it.
Thank you, Jan. Are there any new or opposing comments?
I just wanted to note that
I have a recommend.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, okay. I just have a quick recommendation for the applicant. A good thing that might be fun for this type of activity is to show people not just how to mend their clothing, but having me be more focused on like making creative patches for their clothing that then get sewn on in a very basic stitch. That way, that activity can incorporate a lot of different interests and desires, and it's something simple that people can learn right on the spot.
This is Danny. My comment is that I think that she's tapped into a very deep need within our community and in our world, and having the vision to see that and want to do something about it is tremendous. And that's all I have to say.
This is Marcia. I have one comment to it for the applicant. I noticed that the budget for materials was $863. I saw in the comments where she had mentioned that she wanted to help because of, you know, the waste that we do as far as with clothing. And yeah, I too know that there are people who, because they can't fix it, they will throw it away when it could just be something that's fixed. But instead of, I think it's counterproductive to spend that much in materials just to buy some material to fix when there are households, or you can go to a Salvation Army or something like a resale shop and find some materials that need to be fixed and fix that, or have the applicants bring freshly laundered clothing that they need to repair and go from that aspect. So then that's cutting down on waste, and I don't think that it's worth the cost to do that when there's so many available for little to nothing. And then even if they did it as a project to fix it, but then give it back to the Salvation Armies or those type of places, because the funding that goes to those places help our communities as well. So then therefore they're able to provide not just clothing for people who need it, it's also clothing that's been repaired so that they really have a sustainable garment, you know, for their needs. So that's my only comment. Thank you.
I noticed in some of your comments that this might have been the one that we had trouble accessing the artistic documentation for. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm downloading I'm going to email you all the Dropbox link directly, and I'm also going to download those files and send them to your email. So please make sure that if you had trouble viewing that you take the time to do that. And it looks like we're not going to be done by 11:30. So at this point, is there anyone who is unable to stay on the call for an additional 10 minutes after, so 11:40? Please speak up. Okay, thank you, and we'll continue to be succinct. Thanks, Anne.
Thank you. Please finalize your scores, update your online comments, and let me know if you need additional time. We will now move to application fiscal year 21 IAP Robertson, starting with our first reader, Danny.
After looking at this application, I think the timeline for the project is achievable, and it's achievable within the income that's asked for. If the activities were completed sooner, then possibly the outcome in new students and more class offerings would be more obvious to report in the final grant report as well. And that always helps to see how far a grant can go. I think it would be a stronger application if there was a clear link established between the community and the artist. How will they be contacted? Is it the same group that you have worked with in the past, or is it a new group? And do they have the same contact personnel? So I think it would be stronger if there was a direct link to the future of this artist's career. Having a good website does not automatically relate to having more students to teach. Mm-hmm. And maybe having more advertising or different advertising would increase the number of potential students that the artist mm-hmm. wants to reach. Mm-hmm. So that's those were my major comments.
Thank you, Danny. We'll move to our second reader, Laura.
I agree with Danny on all points. I well understand the value of a website in bolstering your visibility and presence, and they sure, building one yourself isn't always an option. However, I could add one idea that would certainly bolster the community engagement, and that would be for the application to develop on the website tutorials that could be by subscription or fee-based. She could also put some free tutorials on YouTube. And that way people don't have to just come to her for in-person classes all the time. She could learn a lot about what she's trying. People could learn a lot from a web-based presence. And that use of a website then would fall in much better line with the aspirations of community engagement and just getting your teaching out there. So I think that's all I have to add. Very strong presentation as a whole, and clearly this gal likes to teach, and I think the more she teaches, the better off everybody is.
Thank you, Laura. Are there any new or opposing comments? Okay, please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Let me know if you need more time. We will now move to application fiscal year 21 IAP Robinson, starting with our first reader, Marcia.
Okay, Robinson. Furniture designer. I'm trying to see my notes. Function and non-function design. Let's see what's important in here. They are currently working with artists located in the Circle City Industrial Complex in Indianapolis. Let's see, let's go down to something else. Seeking funding to purchase specialized equipment to hand-tough wool yarn into rugs and wall-hung fibers tapestry. The work assisted by funding would be the first shared in their educational environment at the Huron School of Art and Design, so that's a plus. The next thing as far as the public engagement, let's see. Well, for one, I know he plans to work with the school to show the students, so that's a large part because that's a giving interaction that gives again, because once he interacts with them, then they interact with someone else with the same education that he provided. As far as the feasibility, itemized cost of all equipment list runs beyond grant amount, but the applicant has personal cash contributions to cover the remaining balance. So everything was in line there, and that's all my contribution for this one.
Thank you, Marcia. We'll move to our second reader, Andrew.
Yes, I'm, he being a professor at Huron and having the relationships and the current established infrastructure and even individuals that know his work or would come out for one of his exhibitions, especially for something very new and quite different from his previous work. That's the feasibility for that is, I think, very clear. Also, the community engagement, as Marcia said, through the university, through the students, but also he has also worked with the IAC and with Big Car for many years, and having all of those relationships and aspects. I think the exhibition itself, for a professor to have access to these types of funds to be able to put together an entirely new exhibition of an entirely new body of work, I think it's a really good project.
Thank you, Andrew. Are there any new or opposing comments?
This is Laura.
Yeah,
I have
Eric
one.
here.
Oh, sorry. Go for
Oh,
it.
Laura, you can go ahead. No, Laura, go for
Okay,
it.
my battery is dying here, so I've got to talk fast. I like this idea a lot, and he's got plenty of experience, clearly. But what I would like to have seen in his portfolio, he's got some great two-dimensional drawings and designs, and it would have been very nice to see sketches of the proposed tapestry rugs. And then the other thing I would like to mention is that, boy, oh boy, $500 for wool yarn to make those big rugs. I'd like to know where he's going to get it at that price. I just think that's really not enough money. But if he's putting in some money of his own, then that's where that'll come from as well. That's all I got to say.
Go ahead, Eric.
Hi. Hi. A couple of things. First off, yeah, the images that provided, like none of them really justify the artwork that he wants to do. It's all about the artwork he's already done, which the images by themselves are phenomenal. When it comes to the community engagement, it seems like the community engagement, he mostly has that understood in terms of the university, but the university acts very different than the rest of the community. Not everybody has access to attend that. And what he does talk about when it comes to the Big Car collaborative, that seems to be in the early discussions. So overall, I mean, this application is great. I would just like to see more emphasis be put on his ability to do the project in this specific art form, which he doesn't develop as much, and more along the lines of how the larger community will benefit from this, more of that development project, less focused on just the university classroom, because universities already have a lot of these resources for their students. Thank you.
Okay, panels, please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Let me know if you need additional time. We will now move to our final application for today, application fiscal year 21 IAP 10, with our first reader, Jan.
Second.
Okay. Okay, this is about, Linda is going to participate in a 1-week-long residency of Picasso Art School of Fine Crafts and work on this project called the Implement Archive. I think it was very, very intriguing, but I had a hard time with it because it did not follow an important part of the grant criteria, which states that the project must start on or after July 1st. Because of that, I had to kind of grade it down on the sections on feasibility, budget, and overall project. But the project idea was very intriguing, and the strongest part was the community engagement section. So it was just difficult to deal with it because of not meeting the grant criteria on the timeline. So that's all I have to say for now.
Thank you, Jan. Our second reader now, Marcia.
I'm here, I'm sorry. I forgot to take the mic off. Okay, pretty much the same as she just said. I'll piggyback on. The only thing I might have had different, about the residency, the itemization of cost is very clear with all backed up information. So I have no other additional comments on that one. I didn't have anything different than what she already stated.
Thank you, Marcia. Are there any new or opposing comments from the remainder of the panel?
Just a bit of advice, given that a lot of the expenses take place outside the grant period, so my recommendation to you about how to review this is only expenses that take place inside the grant period would be funded if the proposal reaches, based on, let me start over. The proposal still has to measure up to the review criteria without the guarantee that basically the residency would take place, because we are not able to fund the expenses related to that. So you should still, evaluate based on the criteria, the things that will happen inside the grant period. And if it is indeed still reaches a recommended score, then we'll work with Linda on how to kind of navigate some of the changes to her proposal and other necessary changes. But does that make sense?
I don't understand, I guess, what you're saying. So we have to ignore the fact that it doesn't fit into the guidelines. Is that what you're telling me?
It is an eligible application, but a lot of what she's proposing takes place outside of the grant period.
Right.
So basically, it impacts the feasibility of the project. So you're going to have to score it that way. So like I noted in here, this grant can only fund activities that take place between July 1st, 2020 and June 30th, 2021. So evaluate the proposal based on the understanding that our funds can only go toward expenses that take place within that period. So I think you've done it the right way anyway.
Okay.
Okay. Any additional new or opposing comments? Please finalize your scores and update your online comments. Let me know if you need more time. Well, this concludes the Individual Advancement Program Fiscal Year 21 Advisory Review Panel. The public meeting has now ended, and we'll say goodbye to the meeting guests at this time. This meeting recording will be posted on the program web page in the coming weeks. Panelists, please stay on the line. Thank you very much.